Have you ever felt like you were living two lives at the same time? One life where you go to work, pay the bills, fulfill your responsibilities. And another life, deeper, where you know that something extraordinary is happening behind the scenes of your reality. One life where you smile and say what an interesting coincidence when something incredible happens. And another where an inner voice whispers, I knew this was going to happen. If you're watching this now, it's because the time has come to stop living this division. Because the truth is that you're not imagining things. You're not being too spiritual or too much of a dreamer. You're picking up signals from a reality that most people can't perceive. For decades, you've accumulated evidence. Small miracles, impossible timing, intuitions that were confirmed, dreams that materialized, people who appeared exactly when you needed them. And for decades, you've been trained to minimize these experiences, to call them coincidence, to doubt your own perception. But what if I told you that these experiences aren't exceptions in your life? What if they're actually the rule of how reality works, and you simply weren't taught to recognize the pattern? What if your whole life you've had access to a creation technology that's more powerful than anything humanity has ever invented, but no one taught you how to use it consciously? There's a reason why you've always felt different. A reason why certain things just make sense to you when other people don't understand. A reason why you have this persistent feeling that you're here for something greater. You're not here to live an ordinary life. You're here to demonstrate how reality really works. But first, you need to stop hiding behind the word coincidence and start recognizing your true nature. You are a conscious co-creator of reality, and today, you're going to discover how to fully assume that role. Not through more theory or abstract concepts, but through the recognition of something you already know, but never had permission to admit, that you have a power of influence over reality that defies all logical explanation. And it's time to stop apologizing for it. Let's start with the revelation that will change everything. Why you're impossible. Experiences are actually evidence of who you really are. Have you ever noticed that your greatest achievements in life didn't come from you trying harder, but from moments where everything simply aligned? That dream job you got not because you sent 1,000 resumes, but because you met the right person in the coffee line. That relationship that flourished not because you followed relationship strategies, but because you found each other when you were both ready. That business opportunity that appeared exactly when you had developed the wisdom to recognize it. For decades, you've accumulated evidence that there's something more sophisticated operating in your life than simple, linear cause and effect. But society taught you to dismiss these experiences as luck or coincidence. They conditioned you to believe that real success comes through brute force, more effort, more strategies, more control over every variable. What if I told you that this approach is not only inefficient, but is actively working against a creation technology that you already naturally master? Because the truth is that you already know how to co-create consciously. You just never had permission to fully admit it. Think about the moments in your life where things just flowed, where you were in the right place, at the right time, with the right people, where solutions appeared out of nowhere, where doors opened without you having to force them. In those moments, you weren't trying less. You were applying a different kind of effort. Effort aligned with an intelligence that is infinitely more sophisticated than linear planning. It was as if you were dancing with an invisible force that knew steps your conscious mind could never have choreographed. This wasn't an accident. It was you operating in your natural state of conscious co-creation. But here's what no one explained to you. This capacity isn't a privilege of some special moments. It's how you were designed to operate constantly. The difference between the moments where everything flows and the moments where you feel like you're fighting against the world isn't luck. It's the level of alignment between your conscious intention and your unconscious transmission. When these two are in harmony, you become a magnet for sync. When they're in conflict, you create resistance in the quantum field around you. And here's the part that will change everything. You can learn to enter this state of alignment consciously, not through more techniques or strategies, but through the recognition of something you already know how to do. Through the validation of a capacity you've always had, but were taught to minimize. Because when you stop fighting against your own co-creative nature and start working consciously with it, something extraordinary happens. You discover that you can manifest results that seem impossible to those who operate only at the level of brute force. You access an efficiency that defies all linear logic, where less effort produces more results, because that effort is aligned with forces that are greater than your individual will. And this isn't abstract spiritual theory, it's the practical recognition of how you already operate in your best moments. The question isn't learning something new, it's consciously remembering something you've always known, but never had permission to use as your primary creation technology. Have you ever had those periods in life where it seemed like the universe was conspiring in your favor, where everything aligned in a way that defied all logical explanation? If you're going through this now, or if you feel like you're approaching one of these periods, you need to understand that there are 3 unmistakable signs that you're entering a new level of collaboration with life. The first sign is something you've probably already noticed, but maybe dismissed as coincidence. You're attracting exactly the information you need without actively searching for it. You know those moments where you're reflecting on something and suddenly the answer appears through a casual conversation, an article someone shares, or even a phrase you hear on the street. This is happening with a frequency that can no longer be ignored, isn't it? You're not imagining it. Your consciousness is operating like a magnet for insights that will accelerate your evolution. It's as if you've tuned into a frequency where the right information already exists, waiting to be captured. The second sign is even more fascinating. You're starting to see how everything in your life has always been connected. That experience you went through 5 years ago, that at the time seemed like a detour, now makes perfect sense. That skill you developed out of curiosity becomes fundamental to a current opportunity. That person you met under unlikely circumstances is now in a position to help you. It's as if you're seeing your life from a higher perspective, where patterns that were previously invisible now become obvious. You're realizing that nothing was wasted, that every experience was preparing you for this moment of expansion. The third sign is the deepest. You're developing a form of knowledge that transcends logical analysis. You simply know when something is right or wrong before understanding why. You feel when a person is trustworthy before getting to know them well. You intuit when an opportunity will flourish or when something won't work. This knowledge comes from a part of you that is constantly reading signals that your conscious mind hasn't processed yet. It's as if you've developed a sixth sense for navigating reality in a way that's impossible to explain, but impossible to deny. When these 3 signs are active simultaneously, when you're magnetizing relevant information, perceiving patterns in your life, and accessing direct knowledge, you're not just approaching a change, you're approaching a transformation that will completely redefine how you interact with reality. And here's what's powerful. The more you recognize and trust these signs when they appear, the clearer and more frequent they become. It's as if you're remembering a capacity you've always had, but never had permission to use consciously. Have you ever noticed that you have enough energy to transform your life, but sometimes feel like you're fighting against yourself? For decades, you've accumulated evidence that there's a powerful force within you. You've had moments where you made a decision and your whole life changed, where you truly committed to something and resources appeared out of nowhere, where you stopped, hesitating, and doors opened. But you've also had moments where you felt paralyzed, where you knew exactly what you needed to do, but something internal prevented you, where part of you wanted to move forward, but another part resisted with all its strength. What if I told you that this experience of internal struggle isn't evidence of weakness, but rather evidence that you're a deep and conscious person? Because superficial people don't experience internal conflict. They simply react to impulses without questioning. You, on the other hand, have developed multiple perspectives on life, multiple ways of evaluating situations, multiple legitimate needs that need to be honored. The part of you that wants security isn't sabotaging you. It's protecting you based on decades of experience. The part that hesitates before committing isn't indecision. It's acquired wisdom. The part that questions whether you really deserve what you want isn't low self-esteem. It's genuine humility. The problem isn't having these different parts. The problem is when they're working in opposite directions. Think about the moments in your life where you felt most powerful. I bet they were moments where all parts of you were aligned, where your mind, your heart, your intuition, and your will were pointing in the same direction. In those moments, you weren't trying harder. You were operating with internal coherence. And when that happened, your ability to create change multiplied exponentially. You've experienced this. That time you truly decided to end a relationship that wasn't working, and suddenly had clarity and courage you didn't know you possessed. That time you completely committed to a goal, and resources and opportunities appeared as if the universe was conspiring in your favor. This wasn't luck. It was you operating in your natural state of coherence. But here's what no one explained to you. You can learn to enter this state consciously, not by ignoring the parts of you that have legitimate concerns, but by including them in the conversation. Not by forcing false positivity, but by finding ways to honor all your needs, while still moving in the direction of your dreams. For example, if part of you wants to make a career change but another part fears financial instability, the solution isn't to ignore the fear. It's to create a transition plan that honors the need for security while still allowing for growth. If part of you wants to open up to a new relationship but another part fears being hurt again, the solution isn't to force vulnerability. It's to gradually develop your capacity for intimacy at a pace that respects your need for protection. When you stop fighting against these internal parts and start including them in creating your life, something extraordinary happens. They stop resisting and start collaborating. And when all parts of you are working together, when your energy isn't being wasted on internal conflict, you access a level of personal power that defies all logical explanation. You become like a force of nature, not through brute force, but through total alignment with who you really are. Have you ever gone through those periods in life where you felt something significant was happening, but couldn't put your finger on exactly what it was? Where you had the feeling you were entering a new phase, but didn't know how to measure if you were actually progressing? If you're going through this now, there are 5 specific signs that will give you certainty that you're in a real transformation, not just imagining changes. The first sign is something you're probably already noticing. You're seeing solutions where you used to only see problems. You know that financial situation that used to panic you. Suddenly you can see 3 different strategies to deal with it. That conflict at work that seemed impossible. Now you perceive several approaches that could work. That goal that seemed unattainable. You can visualize a path, even if it's different from what you originally imagined. This isn't forced optimism. It's evidence that your mind is accessing perspectives that were previously invisible to you. The second sign is impossible to ignore. The coincidences in your life are becoming too specific to be random. You think of someone and that person calls you the same day. You need specific information, and it appears through a casual conversation in the elevator. You're considering a career change, and suddenly, 3 different people mention related opportunities. You can try to rationalize this as coincidence, but deep down you know there's something more sophisticated happening. It's as if the universe is responding directly to your thoughts and needs. The third sign is perhaps the most powerful. You're knowing things before understanding them logically. You meet a new person and immediately feel whether you can trust them or not. You hear about an investment opportunity, and your gut tells you if it's good or not, even before analyzing the numbers. You're considering an important decision, and you simply know which path is right. This form of knowledge is faster and often more accurate than logical analysis. It's as if you've developed a 6th sense for navigating life. The fourth sign you might be experiencing at this very moment: an inner peace that doesn't depend on everything being perfect. You still have challenges, still have worries, but they don't consume you like before. It's as if you've developed a greater capacity to be at peace with the totality of your experience, including the imperfect parts. You can feel gratitude even when things aren't going as planned. You can maintain balance even when facing uncertainties. You can trust the process even when you can't see the final outcome. The fifth sign is perhaps the most practical. Actions that previously required heroic willpower now flow naturally. You find yourself waking up early because you're genuinely excited about the day, not because you forced yourself. You find yourself eating healthily because you prefer foods that make you feel good, not because you're following a diet. You find yourself working on your goals because that's where you naturally want to put your energy. It's as if you found a current that carries you in the right direction with much less effort. When these 5 signs are happening simultaneously, you're not just changing habits or acquiring new skills. You're undergoing a fundamental transformation in how you interact with reality. And here's the most exciting part. When you recognize that these signs are active in your life, you can consciously make choices that amplify them even further. You can cultivate conditions that increase your capacity to see solutions. You can open yourself more to synchronicities. You can trust your intuitive navigation more. You can deepen your inner peace. You can align more with actions that flow naturally. The question isn't whether you're evolving. The question is, are you willing to recognize and consciously collaborate with this evolution that's already happening? If you recognize that at least 3 of these signs are happening in your life right now, if you feel like you're entering a phase where your capacity to manifest is intensifying, then make a declaration in the comments that confirms this experience. Write exactly this phrase: I trust my process. Nothing more, nothing less. This isn't just for engagement metrics. It's you publicly recognizing something you've always known, but perhaps never had the courage to admit: that you have a natural capacity to navigate through life that is more sophisticated than society taught you to believe. When you make this declaration with sincerity, you're validating decades of experience and signaling that you're ready to trust this capacity even more. Uncertainty and quantum confidence. Have you ever noticed that your best decisions in life didn't come from having all the information, but from trusting something you couldn't explain logically? That time you accepted a job that didn't make sense on paper, but something internal told you it was right, and it ended up being one of the best decisions of your career. That time you moved to a city where you didn't know anyone, but felt it was where you needed to be, and that's where you met important people for your life. For years, you were taught to distrust these decisions. They told you they were risky or impulsive. But looking back, you can see they were some of the smartest decisions you ever made. Society conditioned you to believe you need to have a detailed plan for everything before taking the first step. That uncertainty is dangerous. That not knowing is weakness. But you've always known, deep down, that life doesn't work that way. That the most important transformations happen when you have the courage to move through the unknown, trusting your capacity to discover the path in the process. Think about the people you most admire: entrepreneurs, artists, leaders who created significant changes. They didn't have detailed maps for where they were going. They had clear vision of what they wanted to create, and courage to move step by step through uncertainty. And you have that same capacity. You've already proven it countless times. Every time you faced a crisis and found a way to get through it. Every time you made a difficult decision based on what felt right and discovered it was the right choice. Every time you adapted to unexpected changes and discovered opportunities you wouldn't have seen otherwise. This is evidence that you have an internal navigation technology that is more advanced than any external planning. The difference between people who create extraordinary lives and those who get stuck in repetitive cycles isn't that the former are braver or luckier. It's that they trust this internal navigation technology. They understood that uncertainty isn't the enemy of success. It's where success is born. It's in the space between where you are and where you want to go that all possibilities exist. When you embrace uncertainty this way, when you develop what I call practical confidence based on evidence of your own capacity to navigate through challenging situations, something extraordinary happens. You stop wasting energy trying to control factors that are beyond your control, and focus all your energy on factors you can influence. You stop being paralyzed by the need for certainty, and start moving with the information you have. And when you move this way, when you navigate through uncertainty with confidence based on decades of evidence of your own capacity, the universe seems to conspire to support you. Information you need appears at the right time. People who can help you enter your life. Opportunities open up that you couldn't have planned. This isn't magic. It's that when you stop trying to control every detail, you become more sensitive to opportunities that are already available. The question isn't whether you have this capacity to navigate through uncertainty. You've already proven you do. The question is, are you willing to consciously trust it as your primary creation technology? You've accumulated evidence that there's an intelligence operating behind the scenes that is infinitely more sophisticated than any human planning, an organizing force that you've always felt but never had permission to fully recognize. Think about the complexity of a single meaningful coincidence you've experienced. That time you missed your flight and ended up sitting next to the person who changed your life perspective on the next flight. How many variables had to align perfectly for that to happen? The timing of the traffic that made you miss the first flight, the availability of seats on the second, that person's decision to travel that specific day, both of you choosing adjacent seats. If you tried to consciously orchestrate a coincidence like that, it would be impossible. But you have dozens of experiences like that. Moments where life organized itself in a way your mind could never have planned, but that were exactly what you needed. That time when you were going through a difficult moment, and exactly the right person appeared, with exactly the words you needed to hear. When you were looking for a solution, and the answer appeared in a completely unexpected way. When one door closed, but another opened, that was even better. For years, you were taught to call this luck, or coincidence. But you always knew, deep down, that something more sophisticated was happening. An intelligence that has access to information and coordination capacity that completely transcends linear understanding. And here's what you always intuited, but never had permission to fully admit. This intelligence isn't working independently of you. It's working through you, using your choices, your intentions, your actions as part of a larger orchestration. It's as if you were a co-creator in a cosmic symphony. You have your unique part to contribute, but you're also part of a larger composition that's being conducted by an intelligence that can see all parts simultaneously. You've experienced this. How many times did something you really wanted not happen when you wanted it? But later you realized that if it had happened at that moment, you wouldn't have been prepared, or it wouldn't have been best for you. That job you didn't get, but that directed you to something more aligned with your values. That relationship that ended, but that taught you what you really value in a partnership. That opportunity you missed, but that protected you from consequences that only became clear later. This is the organizing intelligence in action. It doesn't just give you what you want. It coordinates events to support your maximum evolution. And sometimes these two things are different. But here's what requires spiritual maturity. Trusting this intelligence even when you can't see the complete picture. Trusting that there's a larger logic operating even when events seem contrary to your immediate desires. This doesn't mean being passive or stopping having goals. It means keeping your intentions clear while remaining open for them to manifest in ways you didn't imagine. It means working consciously toward your dreams while remaining flexible about exactly how they'll be realized. It's the difference between being a conscious co-creator and an obsessive controller. You contribute your part, clarity of intention, aligned action, personal growth, and trust that the organizing intelligence will contribute its part. Perfect timing, synchronistic connections, unexpected opportunities. You've done this many times. You've collaborated with this intelligence without fully realizing it. You've felt when something was flowing versus when you were forcing. You've recognized the difference between natural timing and impatience. When you consciously honor this capacity you've always had. When you stop apologizing for recognizing patterns that transcend linear logic, something extraordinary happens. You stop fighting against the current of your own evolution and start navigating with it. You stop wasting energy trying to control timing and start using that energy to prepare for opportunities being organized for you. And the more you trust this intelligence that has always operated through your life, the more obvious it becomes. You start seeing patterns you previously minimized. You start feeling when something is being orchestrated versus when you're forcing. The question isn't whether this intelligence exists. You have decades of evidence that it does. The question is, are you willing to consciously collaborate with it instead of fighting against it? Now that you recognize the invisible force that organizes your life and your natural capacity to work in partnership with it, we come to the most important part. How to transform this recognition into something practical that you can use every day. Because you already know that understanding something and actually applying it are completely different things. You've probably already read dozens of self-help books, watched hundreds of inspirational videos, but the difference between people who actually change their lives and those who just consume content is simple. The former found practical ways to apply what they learn day to day. And you've done this before. You've had periods where you were more conscious, more present, more aligned with who you really are. You just need a simple system to do this more consistently. I'm going to show you something based on 3 moments that happen constantly in your life. Moments where you always have a choice. React automatically, or respond consciously. The first moment is when something happens that would normally make you react on autopilot. Someone irritates you, you receive unexpected news, something doesn't go as planned. Instead of reacting immediately as you always have, you create a space of just 1 second and ask yourself, how would the best version of me handle this? It's not about being perfect or always having the right answer. It's about remembering that you have a choice about how to respond to any situation. For example, when someone criticizes you, instead of immediately defending yourself or getting defensive, you pause for a second and think, is there something useful in this criticism? How can I respond in a way that will make me proud later? When you receive news that initially seems bad, instead of immediately panicking, you pause and ask yourself, what opportunities might be hidden here? How can I use this to grow? The second moment is when you need to make a decision, from small things like what to have for dinner to bigger decisions like accepting a job opportunity. Instead of deciding based only on what's easiest or most familiar, you ask yourself, which choice brings me closer to the person I want to become? Every decision you make is like a vote for the type of person you're becoming. When you consciously choose what's aligned with your values, even when it's a bit harder, you're strengthening your identity as someone who lives intentionally. For example, when you're deciding how to spend your free time, instead of automatically choosing the easiest option, you ask yourself, what would make me feel most fulfilled? What activity would the version of me that's committed to growth choose? The third moment is when you're about to act. Before sending that email, before having that conversation, before starting that task, you pause for an instant and connect with why you're doing it. You ask yourself, am I doing this from a place of alignment, or am I just reacting? This simple check transforms routine actions into conscious choices. You stop doing things on autopilot and start doing things with purpose. For example, before responding to a message that irritated you, you pause and ask yourself, am I responding to resolve this constructively, or am I just venting my frustration? When you practice these 3 moments of conscious choice throughout the day, something incredible happens. You start living from a place of intention, instead of just reacting to things that happen. Your actions become conscious expressions of who you're choosing to be, instead of automatic reactions to circumstances. And here's what's important to understand. This isn't about being perfect. It's about direction. You don't need to get it right 100% of the time. You just need to be conscious more times than you were before. Each moment of awareness, each aligned choice, each intentional action strengthens your capacity to live in this more aligned way. It's like exercising a muscle. The more you practice, the stronger it gets. And the more you live consciously, the more natural it becomes. And as you practice this consistently, you start to notice that your external life reflects this internal change. People respond to you differently because you're operating from a more conscious place. Opportunities appear that are more aligned with who you really are. You feel more energized because you're no longer wasting energy fighting against yourself. Additionally, develop the habit of doing an honest review at the end of each day. Not to criticize yourself, but to learn. Ask yourself, in what moments today did I act from a conscious place? In what moments did I react automatically? What can I learn from these experiences? This review isn't about being perfect, it's about growing consciously. It's about using each day as an opportunity to know yourself better and make more aligned choices. I also recommend developing what I call connection moments. Specific periods of the day that you consciously dedicate to aligning with who you really are. These could be 5 minutes in the morning setting how you want to feel during the day, or a few minutes before sleep, reflecting on what you learned. A morning connection moment can be simple. When you wake up, before picking up your phone, you take 3 deep breaths and ask yourself, how do I want to feel today? What energy do I want to bring to the people around me? An evening moment could be, before sleeping, you identify 3 things you're grateful for, and 1 thing you learned about yourself. These moments serve as reminders of who you really are and what really matters to you. Another useful practice is what I call quick check-ins throughout the day. Every few hours, you pause for a moment and ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? Am I being true to myself, or am I just reacting to what's happening? If you notice you've gotten off track, simply breathe and reconnect with your intention without judging yourself. Remember, real transformation doesn't happen overnight. It happens through thousands of small conscious choices that, added up over time, create a completely different life. And when you live this way, when each day becomes a practice of growing consciously, you discover that you're not just improving your own life, you're inspiring other people to do the same. Your conscious presence gives others permission to be more conscious too. Your courage to grow inspires others to grow. You become a living example that it's possible to live intentionally, that it's possible to transform challenges into opportunities. But all of this starts with a choice you make now, in this moment. We've reached the most important moment of this entire conversation. It's not the moment for more explanations or more insights. It's the moment of choice. The moment where you decide whether you're going to use what you learned here to actually change your life, or whether you're going to file this away as just another interesting video you watched. Because here's the truth. Knowing something and applying it are completely different things. You can perfectly understand everything I shared. You can even explain it to other people. But if you don't put it into practice in your daily life, it won't make any difference at all. Right now, you're in a window of opportunity. Your perspective has been expanded. You've seen new possibilities. Your motivation is high. But this window doesn't stay open forever. If you don't act in the next 24 hours, the natural tendency is to return to old patterns. So here's what I want you to do now, not tomorrow, but now. Choose one of the practices I shared and commit to applying it in the next 24 hours. Not all the practices, just one. Not for an entire month, just for 24 hours. It could be using that question, how would the best version of me handle this in the next difficult situation? It could be doing that check, am I acting from an aligned place? Before the next important action, it could be implementing that 5-minute morning ritual. But here's what's important. Don't just decide to do it, declare it. Say out loud. Now, I commit to applying the practice you chose in the next 24 hours. Speaking out loud makes the commitment more real. Because when you act based on what you learned, when you move from understanding to application, you're not just changing behaviors, you're changing who you are. You're becoming the type of person who applies what they learn, who grows consciously, and life responds to that. When you demonstrate through your actions that you're serious about growing, opportunities start to appear. People enter your life who are aligned with this direction. Things start to flow better. But all of this starts with a choice. A choice you make now. Because here's the final truth. You already know enough to transform your life. What you need isn't more information, it's more action. Not more insights, it's more application. The version of you that you want to become isn't waiting in some distant future. It's available now, through the next conscious choice you make. And when you make that choice, when you commit to your growth through action, you join millions of people around the world who understood that personal transformation is the foundation for a better world. Your individual journey doesn't happen in isolation. It's part of something much bigger. Every person who learns to live more consciously contributes to creating a world where more people can live from their potential. So see your personal growth, not just as something for you, but as your contribution to something greater. Every moment of consciousness you cultivate, every aligned choice you make, is helping to create a better world. Make that choice now. And let this be the first of thousands of conscious choices that will create the life you really want to live. The moment is now. The choice is yours. And what you create from this choice will impact not just your life, but the lives of everyone who crosses your path.